Hi there. My name is Jeff Butcher, and welcome to Exploratory Data Source Analysis 3, Taking a Snapshot. Let's get started. So you've just loaded data. How many duplicate customers do you have? How many of them are on the watch list? Do I have any entities I should review? These are questions answered by taking a snapshot, so let's take one now. Go back to your Python folder and execute G2 snapshot. The only parameter you'll need is an output file destination. Put it on your project folder and give it a meaningful name, because later you might want to compare it with another snapshot using the G2 auto utility. Also, don't give it a file extension, as two files are actually created: the JSON file with the statistics and the reports, and a CSV file with the entire entity map that you can use when performing an audit later. Let's let that run. So let's start exploring the snapshot we just took. To do that, execute the G2 Explorer with the name of the snapshot's JSON file. And here you can see that it was successfully loaded. Now you can go to the data source summary to see how many duplicate customers do you have. How many? 33. Let's check the cross-source summary to see if any of them were on the watch list. There seems to be 5 duplicates and some possible matches and relationships. Are there any entities we should review? Let's check the entity size breakdown. This is telling us we have 15 entities with 1 record each, 28 entities with 2 records each, 3 entities with 3 records each, and so on up the line. Should any of them be reviewed? Yes, this one for gender. Now, stats are interesting, but do you believe them? And how do you interact with this report anyway? For instance, who is this entity with 6 records? I can type entity size breakdown equals 6 to show me this 1 record. It's a Susan Mooney. She's got a few AKAs, but 1 date of birth, 1 driver's license, 1 passport, a couple socials, but they're really the same, couple home addresses. She looks like a normal entity to me. She just happens to have 6 records. More to the point is, why did she open up so many records on consecutive days? Who is this person I should review? I can type entity size breakdown, review, and it shows me it's entity number 73, George Wiest. He's got 2 genders, male and female. Wonder why the system put them together. Let's go ahead and ask why. And here's our why screen that says, well, he shares a name and a date of birth, a phone, and an email. The only thing that's different is gender between the 2 records. I'd go ahead and resolve them. Now, do you believe these statistics? Let's take it from the top and go back to the data source summary. The data source summary lists all the data sources that have been loaded. How many records are in each data source, how many distinct entities that turned into. So it looks like the customers, there were 90 records resulting in 45 entities. That's a 50% compression rate. The next 2 columns, singletons and duplicates, are an entity count. How many single entities are out there for customers? 12. How many entities with multiple records? 33. The remaining 3 columns are about relationships, and there are 3 levels. Ambiguous relationships that we'll get into later. Possible matches are relationships between entities where they could be the same, but something disagrees, like they share a name and address but a different date of birth. And the relationship column for relationships between entities that are only sharing an address or a phone, so they possibly just know each other. So how do you interact with this report? Type help data source summary or any command anytime you need to know how to use it. So if I wanted to drill into customer duplicates, I would type data source summary, customers, duplicates. You are now browsing through the list of 33. Here's our good friend Bob, and I can go previous or next to browse through the report. Let's go next. Here's Eddie. Now he's on the report for customer duplicates, but we show the whole entity, and here he is on the watch list as well. Look at that, he's been terminated, probably because he's on the watch list. Let's go next again for Maria. Kusha again. I wonder if she's related to him. We can go D for detail to get all of her information. Here she has 4 active customer records. Let's go D again for her relationships. And here she is related to Eddie as well as a few others, with watch list links no less. Could be a fraud ring, or maybe some of these are synthetic IDs. Let's go back to the report to look at a few more. Let's go next. Here's Muhammad. Look at that MHD. Pretty weak name score. Let's see what we scored it. Let's ask why. Muhammad to MHD scores 98. We have global name matching technology, and we recognize MHD as a common abbreviation for Muhammad. Next for Garsky, another name variation. Next for Daniela, a name swap. Next for Maria, look at that. She has 3 DOB variations. All of these name variations. The email is not exactly the same. Let's get a Y on this one. Oops, it scrolled off the screen. We can press S to scroll to see the whole thing. Let's scroll over to that watch list. This is an interesting one with a P name. That means the given name was close enough. And the date of birth swap scored close enough, as well as the email was still 100%. It's just the name was appended to the front. Cue to quit. So I'm satisfied with these matches. Let's go back to the data source summary. Next, let's look at the possible matches. Data source summary for customers, possible matches. And there's Bob and his father, who share a name and an address, but a different date of birth. Just like before, we can go next, and we have Darla versus Darlene. Now, this only relates because that's only name and date of birth, and the name isn't even exact. And here's a husband and wife, Patrick and Patricia. They share a name and an address, but the date of birth and passports are different. And here's Morris Klein, exact same name, exact same date of birth. However, 1 versus 2, that's a generation mismatch. So there's no more possible matches. Now let's take a look at the cross-source summary. How many customers were on the watch list? And there's that ambiguous I promised you. Let's take a look at it. And a classic example. Here's a watch list entry for John Smith in Palm Harbor, but there are 2 other John Smiths in Palm Harbor with a different date of birth. Can't be the same guy. That means this guy could be either one of them. That's what we refer to as ambiguous. So that concludes the snapshot demonstration. If you're doing a proof of concept or just loading a new data source and want to see what happened, take a snapshot and review the stats and examples. I promise you, you will be amazed when you browse your own data.